Have you ever wondered how you can lead your team when it feels like you don't have any real authority? Or have you ever wondered why anyone would listen to you when it feels like nothing you say matters because upper management is just going to unravel it anyways? Well, if either of these questions have run through your mind, then I want you to know you're in the right place. Because in this video, which is dedicated to all my middle managers out there, I want you to know that I see you. And because I see you, I want to talk about 3 core things. Number 1, how to make a meaningful impact as a manager when you feel like you've been given very limited authority. Number 2, a powerful shift that will stop you from questioning your own value as a middle manager. And then number 3, what to do when your own manager makes a decision you don't agree with, but you got to get your entire team behind it. So if you're worried about having to sell a decision that you don't believe in, then stick around to the end because we are going to dive into that. Now, depending on your perspective or even the kind of day that you're having, you may jump between feeling frustrated at your boss or the situation that you've been put in and then questioning whether or not the real problem is you and your management. Before we go any further into this, I want to tackle that one head on. So it's important for you to know that you're most likely not the problem. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make tweaks to your approach. I mean, we all can. But what it does mean is that over the years, I've seen enough of this to know that this tension for middle managers exists because of the overall setup and cultural dynamics of a lot of organizations. Middle managers just have it tough. It is not easy to be in your position. So I want to talk about that. So let's start with the first tension place, which is this frustration around authority, right? How can you lead when you're not being given the authority to lead? Well, I gotta ask, do you really not have authority, or are you going off of some sort of assumption? This has been something that, again, I've observed with working with managers where they just kind of adapt or take whatever is thrown at them rather than having conversations that would give them what they need in order to have a better chance of advancing the objectives and the goals. So the question is, right, where do you start? Where do you begin? What type of conversation is this that you need to have? Well, you need to have a frank conversation with your manager where the objective is to articulate that you're in a place where it's difficult to implement and make significant strides or changes because of the limited runway that you have. Now, it's important that in this conversation, you are not coming off as complaining or emotional, right? You would need to use statistics and results that were assigned that if you had the authority to make moves, that things could have turned out differently and or better if you did. And when you talk about you or your department, instead of saying this is what we need, it's this is what the company needs. Now, I know you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I don't know about that, Mac. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I got to tell you, in order to see a change, you got to take some sort of action. And the first action is to have the conversation with the person who has control of the proverbial rope, so to speak. So if you want more rope or more autonomy, you have to sell the idea to the person that's holding it. And I have to tell you, I've had many students in my new manager accelerator who've been in your very shoes, who've had 2 different outcomes when they approached their manager. So one, their boss said something to the effect of, oh, I didn't actually realize you were feeling this way. Please have at it. And number 2, their manager actually felt that they weren't ready for that type of autonomy that they wanted, so they were able to negotiate with their manager the amount of autonomy that they were comfortable with. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, okay, Mac, I get it, but it feels like this doesn't solve the problem that I'm currently experiencing, which is that I don't actually feel important. I feel like I'm simply a mouthpiece from upper management to frontline, and my team obviously sees it. To which I'll say, I am so glad that you brought this up, and at the same time, it's time for some tough love. So my question back to you is, why do you care so much about feeling important? Wouldn't it be so much more valuable for you to focus instead on being useful? If you can lead with being useful, your calendar will start to reflect your usefulness, and people's view of you will shift as a byproduct. Listen, hanging on to this feeling will not get you ahead because trying too hard will have you showing up in a different way that's honestly just not productive. I've seen it. However, if you stop worrying about feeling important and start focusing on being important, you will have far-reaching impacts, and at the end of the day, you'll feel better. Now, before we go on, I know that this is easier said than done. And in fact, this is one of the multiple mindset shifts that you need to make as a manager. In other words, this is a huge and really important topic and far too much to dive into in this one video. But I talk about these mindset shifts as well as so many others in my free training where I go deeper. So definitely check that out at makitaandrews.com/training, or I'll put it in the description box below for you. But for now, let's just keep moving. Okay, so there's one other really common challenge with being a middle manager that we haven't actually touched on yet, and that's having to sell an idea to your team that you don't actually believe in. So I gotta tell you, the answer is multifaceted, but I'm gonna simplify it for the sake of time. So first things first, you gotta ask some questions to the decision maker or the person that's communicating communicating the decision or the direction to you in the first place, which is most likely your manager. Now, the intent behind these questions is really important, of course, because that's going to impact the way that you ask the question as well as the way the question is received. So I want you to know that the intent shouldn't be to poke holes in the decisions that they've made, but simply to understand the why behind the decision. Now, best case scenario, you walk away from the interaction with a deeper sense of clarity and you're bought in, which makes, of course, the communication to your team easier. However, if after you ask, you still don't feel bought in because fundamentally you just see things differently, you got to do two things. Number one, make a resolve to support the decision or the direction, because after all, only one person can steer the ship. And in this journey, you play a supporting role. And then number two, seek to understand the intention behind the decision and trust that their intention was a good one. So yeah, maybe you don't agree, but do you at least understand their why? I mean, if they have good reason, but maybe the way that they're going about it is all cattywampus, just try to understand their intent. Both of these things, either the resolve or just the internal clarification that you need, will help you channel down a communication that is authentic. Middle management is hard, and not everyone is cut out for it, as some of us just don't enjoy the tension that is involved with being sandwiched in the middle. But what I hope is that this video gives you the best chance at making it work so that you can give it a chance and then decide if it's for you or not. There's no denying that there's so much more that goes into succeeding, not just as a middle manager, but as a leader as a whole. And as you might have noticed by now, it's a pretty lonely spot. Without support and the practical guidance, you're in it for a lot of trial and error, which can lead to even more self-doubt. So in case you didn't know, I'm here to help, and in a much bigger way than simply these videos, which honestly is just the tip of the iceberg. One of my students said it best when she said this.
For me, what has made a tremendous difference is the direct link that we have to you, being able to use you as a soundboard. I reach out to you on things that perhaps don't even have to do with anything with the content that we're learning in the program itself. I bounced off the capacity planning idea with you. I reached out to you on quality assurance because I know that you worked in that area and you probably have, some insights to give there. You can't get that from my YouTube channel. Yes, your content is great. That's what led me to you. If that's what you're getting from YouTube, could you just imagine what you're getting in the actual program? It's way more for sure. Your performance dashboard was the center of what we built our performance framework around. My entire team training program for this year is built off of templates from that. All things that I had visions to do with my team, but again, I probably wouldn't even know where to start if it wasn't for those templates. So I think just again, the amount of tools that we get equipped with, the actual lessons itself, it goes way deeper than what people are seeing on YouTube videos. I think that's just really a sliver of what you offer. I think those are great supplements to the program, but the program goes way deeper than that. And then again, what we've been touching on through this entire discussion is just that group of people that you get, that support. You just don't get that through a YouTube video. Let's say there's someone sitting on the fence about joining the program. I would literally just tell them, just do it. If you're committed to becoming the manager that you want to be, which is an awesome sauce manager, and you want to get there quickly, you should join. Just take the plunge, just do it.
As I mentioned earlier, my free training is the perfect next place to start because I break down the 5 pillars of my Elevate Team Performance Framework, which is like the roadmap for becoming an effective leader that builds a high-performing team. So if you're serious about making an impact, then head to makitaandrews.com/training or click the link in the description box below to sign up for free.